What is up, everyone? It is finally time to get up close and personal with the M4 Mac Mini. My original plan was to do this way sooner, just after the release of the machine, but that didn't quite work out. I did tell this story in my previous video, the MacBook Air video. For anyone who hasn't checked that out, go and check it out, because that was kind of the stepping stone to the point that we're at now. But for anyone who hasn't seen that or doesn't want to watch that, then that's cool, and I will explain it really briefly right here before we unbox the M4 Mac Mini. When Apple transitioned to Apple Silicon and released the first wave of M1 machines, I purchased an M1 Mac Mini pretty much straight away to use as my main machine, and it's been absolutely fantastic. Over the years, I always kept it in my mind that I wanted to stay somewhat at the front of the evolution of the machines. So I didn't want to be an M1 Mac Mini owner for, say, 6 or 8 years to the point where the machine had no resale value and it would be difficult for me to upgrade. I was much more keen on upgrading every maybe 2, 3, at a push 4 years, so that the previous machine would still have some resale value. So that's exactly what I did. The release of the M4 Mac Mini signified the first time where I thought that there was a really good reason to upgrade from the M1 Mini. So I sold off the M1 Mini really quickly for a good price. I sold it to a friend. It was a fair deal for both of us, and he is really pleased with his M1 Mac Mini, which is great news. I do miss the machine terribly. I then went to try and get my hands on one of these guys, and because I wanted to configure it a little bit higher, I needed a BTO option and I wanted to do some finance on that, but I got rejected for the finance. And then with Christmas right around the corner, it couldn't have been any worse timing. I just couldn't fund the purchase of the Mac Mini. Then the MacBook Air opportunity came up and I had to take that because obviously I needed a machine. So yeah, if you want the more nitty-gritty version of that, then check out the MacBook Air video. But we are now here today and I have purchased a Mac Mini. It's not brand new. It is from a friend, it's from a viewer, and I just want to give a big shout out to Alex, Mr. Bushuman, for giving me such a good deal on this. He purchased this brand spanking new from Apple really recently. He's used it for a bit, but I managed to convince him to sell it to me, which is awesome. So that sounds a lot worse than it is. I think he's going to be remaining in the Windows world as far as I can tell. Maybe he can post a comment down below and let us know the reasons why he let this go, rather than me trying to sort of explain that on his behalf. So coming out the other side, it's all made sense and it's worked out for everyone, and I've saved a little bit of money. The only thing that I didn't manage to get was any of the BTO options that I wanted. So in an ideal world, for my main machine M4 Mac Mini, I would have enjoyed a bump up to 24 gigs of RAM and 10 gigabit Ethernet on board. But the fact about that is, firstly, I've been running 16 gigs of RAM in my M1 Mini with no issue. And without looking too much into the future, I can continue to use 16 gigs of RAM without a problem. So that's fine. There's no point worrying about that. And with the 10 gig Ethernet, there's enough I/O on this, and I already own a USB-C, or Thunderbolt rather, Thunderbolt to 10 gigabit Ethernet adapter, so that isn't a problem either. It would have just been a luxury to have it on board. But that's no biggie either. So this is the base model, 256 with 16 gigs of RAM. Storage will address that right away. As you guys know, I feel quite strongly about it. I don't store anything locally on the machine. I have a lovely rack full of servers, and that's where everything goes. I've got a beautiful 10 gig Ethernet network, and I do everything, including editing over the network, directly to and from my servers. So yeah, I don't store anything locally. For the people that have to put up with me speaking about this all the time, I do apologize. I do realize that it is convenient for lots of people to have a lot of storage in the box locally, but for me, it's more of a burden. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the 256. It was always going to be the 256 anyway, and we'll get on just fine with the 16 gig of RAM. So anyway, talking and rambling aside, let's get into it. I want to check it out in person. I have not been to any shops or anything to see it. It's been out for a few months now. As of recording this, it is the beginning of January 2025, so what a way to start the new year. So this is the original shipping carton for the machine. Alex kept all the packaging, which is excellent, and he's done a nice job repacking this for us, I do believe. So unlike the shipping carton for the previous design Mac Mini, it is now one of the, oh gosh, here we go. What on earth is on here? I get instantly worried now since Jack gave me all those air fryers. So we've avoided air fryers, thank God. Okay, cool. So hi Tom, hope all is good. First and foremost, just wanted to say, hope you have an amazing time using this absolute powerhouse of a machine. As much as I've not had long to tinker about with this machine, the short 46 days, so there we go, one of our questions has been answered. The short 46 days I've had this, it's never hiccuped, even doing gaming, which did take me by surprise. Yeah, it's the same story with my M1, you know, they're just ultimately such smooth machines. They're lovely. Anyway, enough rambling. Enjoy this workhorse, and hopefully it's worth every penny in performance and snappiness. Kind regards, Alex Bushuman. P.S. This is a bus font, specifically the one used in London. Lovely. Cheers, Bus. I appreciate that, dude. Apologies for my robotic reading there, folks. Reading is not my strong point. Anyway, let's dig into this Mac Mini. And cheers, Alex, for the large font on the letter. I do appreciate that. Wow, crazy. Let's whip out a Mac Mini from somewhere. Let's see. Look at that. How crazy is that? This is 2012, by the way, but they didn't change the case design, as you guys know. So it's just bonkers. I can't wait to actually compare it to the machine. Let's have a little look and see what we've got going on. There it is. There it is. It is cold. It is freezing because it's snowing today. So this had a very cold journey to my door. Flippin' heck, that is tiny. Quick look at the rest of this stuff. I do actually need the power cable from here because I got rid of the other power cable with the other Mac Mini. I do have these figure of 8 cables lying around, but it's nice to use the Apple one, isn't it? And this is that cool braided feel, which is nice. Gonna leave everything else exactly the way it is. And before we close that up, let's just unwrap this guy. Nice job on the repacking, not the easiest. There we go. So here it is. I mean, you've all seen them a million times by now. This has got to be one of the most popular machines in Apple history. When we look back at this point in time, I think the amount of people that purchased these straight away, it's just a no-brainer deal. They're just such nifty little Macs. They couldn't have done a better job of the update. It's just, look at it, this power in your hand. Bring in the machine to compare again. Just look at that. That's crazy. I love it. I love it. Of course, when this case was originally designed, they designed it around the optical drive because the optical drive was a large drive that needed to fit in the case. Then when they removed the optical drive, they didn't redesign the case, they just kept this design. Makes you wonder, could they have redesigned the case sooner and made a more compact motherboard? You know, I think the answer is yes. Most definitely with Apple Silicon as well. You know, there's barely anything inside an M1 or an M2 Mac Mini, and that's how they've been able to do this. But it's heavy, it's densely packed. You can feel that it's a dense package. Yeah, you know, this one is still heavier, but this one feels more densely packed. So we've got the famous power button on the bottom, which is no big deal for me because I never turn the machine off. One thing I wanted to see is, yeah, okay, that's really interesting. It's hard to tell on pictures just how hidden the button is when the machine is sat down on the desk there. But my word, it really is on the bottom, isn't it? That's crazy. Anyway, power button moaning aside, one of my favorite things about this redesign is the fact that we now have USB on the front. And I'm not a huge USB-C guy just because of how old a lot of my stuff is. I've still got tons of USB-A and will do for a very long time, but it's nice to have the option here on the front. And I think I'll use one of those small cheapo USB-C to USB-A adapters so I can have my card reader at the front here, at least for a while. I am looking at getting one of those bases, because they're really cool. They give you some card slots at the front and stuff and some extra ports. I may well do that. Around back, we've got sort of infinite connectivity when you realize the capability of these ports, these Thunderbolt ports. HDMI on there, nice for convenience. I'll get my second HDMI out of my existing Thunderbolt AV adapter thing. Gigabit Ethernet, as I say, would have been nice to BTO up to 10 gig, but not a big deal. Plus, it's an SFP adapter I've got, so it's fiber running around here anyway and not an RJ45 connection. So I would have had to do a little bit of refiddling with my cabling to run an RJ45 feed for 10 gig over to my desk. I mean, it wouldn't have been a huge deal, but it's currently SFP, so I can just leave it as it is and use one of these lovely ports to dedicate to the 10 gig Ethernet adapter. Condition-wise, it's looking perfect. You know, Alex has owned this for 46 days, which is nothing, is it? So wonderful. I would have been very surprised if you managed to get any scratches or anything like that on it. It is looking good. I just want to take a moment here to appreciate it a little bit more, because once we put it on the setup, that's kind of it. It's plugged in and then it just blends in, but just a little bit of extra appreciation here for a moment. And I know I touched on this quickly in the MacBook Air video, but the upgrade is almost nothing to do with performance, which is quite sad. You know, obviously I will enjoy the extra performance that I get from this guy. M4 is quicker than M1, but I didn't need to upgrade from M1, and I think it's kind of hilarious, this whole thing that's happening with Apple at the moment, where they've made the first generation of machines so good. M1 is so good that so many people don't have a reason to upgrade. And I didn't have a performance-related reason to upgrade. It was purely financial, because I knew as soon as these came out, these would sell like hotcakes and the value of the M1s would drop. And that is what's happening steadily. But it had nothing to do with performance. So if you take that and apply it to our historic knowledge of machines, at what other point in time have we been able to say that a 4 or 5 year old, four-year-old at this point, I guess kind of 5 eventually at the end of this year, 4 or 5 year old machine that is 3 or 4 generations old and is the base model for the time, the cheapest Mac that you could buy, is still powerful enough for absolutely everything that a normal user like me can throw at it, 4 or 5 years later. That is unheard of. And I love it. When has a first generation product ever been that good of an investment? It's a lovely time to experience this entire Apple Silicon journey. This is my next step, of course. This is my 4th machine that I'm now experiencing with the chip. So I had the M1 Mini with 16 gigs of RAM, my machine. Then in work, we quickly purchased an M1 Mini with 8 gigs of RAM for the office. That's still in use every day. Nice machine. Then I got my MacBook Air a couple of months ago, as you guys know. Absolutely lovely machine. M1, 8 gig. And now I'm stepping it up and I'm experiencing the M4 Mac Mini. So please excuse any dust you see here. I am not going to dust before putting the new computer on. That would be the logical thing to do, is clean everything and then put the new machine in place. I'm not going to do that. I want to get it up and running. I can easily wipe some of this stuff over anyway once it's in place. I'm too excited to clean. That's just the bottom line. So this is the setup that I've been using for the MacBook Air. These adapters are really quite handy from Apple because you've got a power pass-through. There's only 2 ports on the MacBook Air, so I've got my charger going in there, and then of course this connects to one of our ports, HDMI out to a monitor, USB-A out to a USB 3 hub that's under the desk, and that does my keyboard, mouse, audio interface, absolutely everything that's connected basically. And then this guy here is the one lonely Thunderbolt connector for my 10 gig Ethernet. So that's the setup I've been rocking for the last couple of months, and it's been really nice. So this is kind of my plan. There we go. That's how it's gonna go for now. I think that little stand underneath it will be pretty cool. We're gonna keep this. We don't need the power now, of course, so we can ditch that. But we are gonna keep this guy exactly as it is, because we need our USB-A to get to our hub anyway. There's no USB-As on this machine, unlike the previous Mini. I don't know what this is attached to, so I'll need to connect that to the hub as well. I've got some free ports. That could be my UPS, I'm not entirely sure. So we'll figure that out. That was clearly plugged into the back of my Mac Mini. So we'll plug that adapter in there. And then this can be rerouted back around the back. The view of my setup is going to be a little bit tight here. The other USB-A that I had permanently plugged into the M1 Mini was for this super drive, because the super drives are weird. They don't work on USB hubs, which is really annoying. But I've got the Mac Pro here for the majority of my optical media needs. It is handy to keep an optical drive on the setup though. Let's get some power to this guy. Let's drop down our lovely new power cable. Okay, so the setup is far from perfect. Needs a good dust, needs stuff shuffled around, but we've got the basics plugged in for now. Let's fire this guy up. Lovely, nice, deep, boomy, bassy bong. Aha, and we have display. Lovely. Welcome to Mac. I'm just sat here minding my own business and there's a continue button. I didn't realise. So here we are at the desktop. I got my second delivery from Mr. Bushuman. He purchased these prior to selling me the Mac Mini. I also decided to buy these from him because now that he's sold me the Mac Mini, of course, he's got no use for this lovely little dock. Now, he also bought this, a 1TB WD Blue NVMe SSD, for the dock, because this does have an M.2 slot in it for an NVMe SSD, which is very nice, but we'll be using this for a different project. So we're going to put that off to the side for now. I'm not going to be occupying this with an SSD because I just don't require the storage. What I do require, however, is more I/O, and this is going to do exactly that for us. So let's rip into it. It's been a number of weeks since I installed the Mac Mini on the setup, and I wanted to have a really kind of good feel of the system so that I could give you guys a good conclusion at the end of this video. And it's nice because we've also been able to incorporate this bonus unboxing and setup of this guy. Now, this was actually delayed Alex ordered this and received delivery of this after he sold me the Mac Mini, which is pretty wild when you think about it. So here's the actual little dock itself, and we've got two cables. So what have we got? We have got USB-C to USB-A, and we've got our little Thunderbolt cable, which is the one that we want to connect to the Mac Mini. So I'm guessing we've got this just in case you'd want to connect this. No, actually, I'm not seeing why we've got that. Ooh, and a little screwdriver as well. I guess that's for the SSD thing. We'll figure out the cable thing in a minute. First of all, let's check out the SSD mount, because I think even though we're not installing the SSD, we'll use this included screwdriver, see what it's like. Oh, hang on a minute. It includes, this is strange. It includes a flathead screwdriver. These are not flathead screws. And what is the standoff? Ah, okay, so this is flathead. I see. Slightly easier with the correct screwdriver. Kind of interesting that they bother including a screwdriver at all, considering you need a completely different type of screwdriver to even get in here in the first place. Okay, so what happens now? I need to find some instructions. Does this come with instructions? Okay, I found the instructions. Unscrew the aluminium cover, which we have done. And why is it not coming off? Ah, here we go. Okay, sweet. Cool, nice. This is made really nicely. There is our slot for the SSD. That is really nifty. Such a great way to expand the storage on the Mac Mini in a nice, elegant kind of solution. Now, there are lots of these types of docks available. Some of them have got more features than others. This particular one is quite feature rich, because we've got obviously the SSD slot that we just saw in there. Some of them aren't capable of doing display out, and there are all sorts if you look online. I believe this one comes in a 10 gigabit version and a 40 gigabit version, if I'm not mistaken. Now this one is the 10 gigabit, and if I wanted to maximize all of the potential of this and use the storage, then I'd probably lean towards a 40 gigabit. Because, you know, you may as well. Of course, 10 gigabit is going to be completely adequate for what we're going to be using this for. So let's have a little look around at the ports. So on the front of the device, we've got two USB-A ports. One is a USB 5 gigabit per second port, so just like a normal USB 3 port. The other is a USB-A 10 gig per second, USB-C 10 gig, full-size SD, micro SD on the front. That is one of the main reasons why I wanted one of these, to stop the whole nonsense with the USB SD card readers and things. It's going to be really, really nice having that actually. On the back, we've got a USB-C 5 volt 3 amp. This is power out, I'm guessing for charging, so no data, just charging. Then we've got a 3.5mm jack, which is quite interesting because this is a Thunderbolt hub. So there's obviously some kind of DAC in here to allow the use of a headphone jack. So it'd be interesting to kind of hear what the quality of that is like. 5 gig USB, HDMI that'll do 4K at 60, and then our host connection for our Thunderbolt cable. Here is the Thunderbolt cable. And let's try and figure out why they would have included a USB-C to USB-A cable. And what spec is this cable then? No, the paperwork doesn't really cover that. I guess this is just a bonus, I suppose, unless you guys can think of something that I'm immediately missing. Whether you can use some of the functionality of this if you want to use it as a normal USB hub, I really don't know. But there we go, there's that. Now I've seen a couple of videos online of various Mac Mini docks. Not all of them are designed in the same way. This one's got kind of the heatsink fin array thing here, and the Mac Mini base is going to sit on this rubber here. And I wonder if this affects the airport signal, because there have been some issues with these affecting the signal quite badly for airport on the M4 Mac Mini. Of course, I use a wired network anyway, so it'll make no difference to me, but still interesting to see. But this is one of those ones that does have the little cooling bit here, and there is a diagram of this. Where did I see that? Yes, there we go, just on the inside of the box. Look at that, built to chill. Very nice. So I think we should lift up the Mac Mini and just bung it on here. So you guys can see straight away that I've been kind of busy in this corner. I've put a vertical monitor here. I'll show you the full setup in a minute because it's actually looking really sweet. I had more display outs to play with the M4 Mac Mini. So one of the first things I did was hook up my little Thunderbolt dock that I use with my MacBook Air so that I could try a third display, and that was awesome. I had to take it back off because I needed that dock for, well, everything. I need to plug that into my MacBook Air constantly just to get Ethernet and stuff for work. So I haven't been able to permanently enjoy that, but I will be able to permanently enjoy it with this. So this is one of the main uses. HDMI from that third monitor can go in here like that. And let's plop the Mini on top and see how it looks. Wow, do you know, it definitely doesn't lock into place or anything like that. It is quite kind of loose on there, but of course, it fits perfectly. That actually does look really cool. Brilliant stuff. Let's plug that into the Mini straight away. Just having these USB-A's on the front is gonna be so handy as well, guys. And I know we've got these now, which is cool, but as I say, I still use a lot of USB-A. I realized that shot was a little bit wide, wasn't it? So you didn't get the full satisfaction. There it is. There is the Tower of Power. Can I refer to it as a Tower of Power? I think I can, because that does look cool. It looks really, really cool. Sort of turns it into a kind of Mac Studio looking thing, doesn't it? Now, hilarious, and you're gonna call me an absolute hypocrite for this because of what I said previously in the video, or did I say it in the MacBook Air video? I can't remember when I said it anyway, but I basically referred to the fact that when we've got all this confusion around USB now, especially with USB-C, it's difficult to tell which port is capable of what, because nothing is labeled and there's no standard colors. Now this guy has got labeling all over it. As you can see, everything is labeled. And it's also got colorful ports, so you can see the difference. So I should be grateful for that, but glancing over at the Mac Mini, you can definitely see that just seeing that, it kind of removes a little bit of the classy side. It's a little bit non-Apple-like, isn't it? Because the ports are colorful and they're labeled. I mean, you know, check out these ports. They're just there, aren't they? They're just little holes as discreetly placed as possible in the front of the machine. Very, very Apple. Let's just do a demonstration of plugging in a USB device. Look at that. Ultimate convenience. Ooh, and the drive is flashing. That's great. Let's see if we've got all of our displays detected and everything working. Okay, so let's wake up some of these displays. I've just unplugged my old card reader from the USB hub over there. Turn this monitor on and let's see if we have display. Yeah, we do straight away. It's still configured because obviously it recognizes the display. That's brilliant. Let's log in. So displays are working really nicely. That flash drive is not formatted correctly for a Mac, so let's plug in a different one to give this a test. Just want to try the front USBs, and then this footage that I'm recording now, I'll test the SD card slot with that. There we go. There's a USB working perfectly and very convenient there on the front. Monitors are behaving absolutely beautifully. Everything is working just as it should. So I've made an interesting discovery here. I was expecting this hub to show up under Thunderbolt devices, and out of our available 3 Thunderbolt buses here, of course, corresponding to the 3 ports on the back, the only one that actually displays as plugged into anything is, see, no device connected to that bus, no device connected to that bus. This bus, we have a device connected, and it is the QNAP 10 gig Ethernet adapter. So that's all cool. But obviously we know that the new enclosure is running. If we go to USB, you can see all of my various confusing USB hub trees. This one is the one that I have my main USB hub connected to under the desk. So it's got all the keyboard and mouse and audio interface and everything on it. That's that one. This one is the little Apple adapter, HDMI adapter that I have hanging out the back there. And then this one here is the new dock. So it actually displays as a USB device because you can see there, the SSD enclosure. It displays as a 10 gig USB device, of course. So that's quite interesting. It's for the USB side of it, it's obviously doing the display, and then everything else is part of that USB hub, the SSD enclosure, all of the USB ports, the card reader, and the built-in audio interface, if you like, the built-in, you know, at least DAC for that headphone jack, the 3.5mm jack. I'm just checking out the RayQ website here with these docks, and there seems to be various options. There's a 40 gigabit option here, 4-in-1, 10-in-1, this is the 10 gig one we've got.
It's weird. And then you've got maximum performance 80 gig. It seems to be the further down the list you go with the speeds here, you're kind of sacrificing the connectivity. This one's got some USB 2s on it and audio, and this one's got a whole lot of nothing on the back. So yeah, interesting product selection here. The marketing is really kind of butchered on this. I'm just looking at the 40 gig version here, which is hub and stand with SSD enclosure, so nothing on the front. And it's got 2 blue USB ports on the back, but the blue port is a USB-A 2.0, 480 megabits per second. Why? Why? You come down, yeah, it's all about the SSD speed when you get to the higher end ones. So in fact, this is the better one for me. Also doesn't mention anything about the other cable included, and does not mention that you will not receive the correct screwdrivers to actually open the enclosure. Wild. But I think for the money, £82 on the website, that's not actually too bad. The verdict is in, at least this initial portion of the verdict. It's been around a month now since I unboxed the M4 Mini. I've been using it every single day, and I've tried to throw as many different kind of varied tasks at the machine as I possibly can. Not so much to get a measurement. I'm not really interested in benchmarks and things. They're littered all over the internet. You guys can check them out for yourselves. I'm not going to run them in this video because that's the thing with these Apple Silicon Macs. They are all pretty much the same. They're the same thing. So there's no point me replicating that and just kind of filling your ears with numbers. There's a time and a place for that. I think what I will do now is give you my own thoughts in more of a descriptive way as to how it feels under my own use case. I think that's the best way to do it. So in a nutshell, the Mac Mini is glorious. It is absolutely lovely. And I want to say straight away that what I find unusual about the M4 Mini is, unlike nearly every other computer on the planet, and maybe I'm just super lucky here, or I haven't found it yet, there has been no issue at all. I mean, zero problems. Stability, 100% perfect. Reliability, 100% perfect. Little niggles, hiccups, teething troubles, absolutely none. It's crazy. There's usually something, you know? We just accept that. They're computers, they're unpredictable. But for whatever reason, this M4 Mini has been solid as a rock, and I can't get over that. In a way, it's a shame because I've got no negative talking point really for this video, but I've still got lots and lots of things that I'd like to do in terms of comparison discussion. So we'll get into that in a minute. But that's my first point that I want to bring up, is absolutely nothing has gone wrong. Touch wood, it's been perfect, which is just unheard of. Now, I didn't have any catastrophic issues with the M1 Mini, of course. It's been a lovely machine. It was glorious. And as I said, I didn't necessarily need an upgrade. I wasn't upgrading due to any issues or performance problems. It was just purely to get to the next point on the ladder. But the lack of issues with the M4 Mini is definitely welcome. So I think the main area that I want to highlight is the issues that I've kind of spoken about in the past. I touched on these at the end of the unboxing video for the M1 Mini initially, and then subsequently I've mentioned it over the years. I've always found the display output, in particular running dual monitors from an M1 Mini, and I've run dual monitors on 2 M1 Minis and had the exact same experience. I've always found the experience a little bit lacking in terms of reliability. So the M1 Mini can definitely do it. It's not a problem at all. It supports 2 monitors, and it supports 2 monitors of a much higher resolution than my crusty old things here, although I do have a 1440p display now, which is nice, but it's capable of more. We're not talking about the capability in terms of spec. We're talking about the reliability of the way the display interface feels on the M1 Mini. The main issue is with 2 displays connected, I would say 1 in every 6 to 8, maybe 7 to 9 wakes from sleep. 1 in every, call it 8 wakes from sleep. It'll just drop one of the monitors for no apparent reason. Impossible to narrow down a pattern. There just seems to be no logic to it. You'll wake from sleep and bang, one of your monitors won't wake up. It's completely black. And the only way to get it back is to unplug the monitor physically from the Mac Mini and plug it back in, and then it's recognized by the system again. Prior to doing that, if you jump into the display settings, the Mac Mini can only see 1 monitor. It just completely loses it. And That is strange. There's a potential that this may not happen with DisplayPort monitors, this may not happen with newer HDMI monitors, but at least going from HDMI to DVI and running some slightly older monitors that I've got here and in work, that happens regularly on both machines, or it did happen before, of course, I upgraded. Another strange form of behavior that the M1 Mini has always done for me, both minis, when running dual displays, sometimes when waking from display sleep, not system sleep, so if your system goes black, but it hasn't actually gone to sleep yet. Sometimes waking from display sleep, one display will be covered in like a kind of staticky snow image, sort of a colorful staticky image. So the monitor is still recognized by the system. It's still there. So unlike going to black, it knows that the monitor still exists and it's still technically driving the monitor. When the displays wake up, it lights up, but there's no proper image. It's just this horrible staticky image. And again, the only way to solve that is to unplug the monitor and plug it back in to kind of remarry the relationship between the machine and the monitor. So that's always been really strange, those two issues. And it's something that, yeah, it only takes 5 seconds to quickly unplug that, plug it back in. But with two monitors, you tend to forget which one's which. You unplug the wrong one. It's just a hassle. All your windows move around everywhere, end up on one display, resize themselves, put them elsewhere, different desktops. Just a little bit of a pain, and something that I have not had to contend with on the M4 Mini. Add in the fact that the M4 Mini can natively drive 3 displays, which I'm taking advantage of here. So there's more load, and we're using more of the potential of the display capabilities of the Mac Mini, and zero issues with any of these. Everything just wakes up straight away. I haven't had a single dropped display. There's got to be a reason why those M1 Minis drop displays on a multi-monitor setup. Now, it's my understanding that if you run one monitor from an M1 Mini, it just runs it, you know, all day absolutely fine. It doesn't drop its only monitor. It's something to do with 2 monitors. The last point about the display output in general is you just get the feel from the M4 Mini. This is in no measurable way, but you just get the feel that it is absolutely just zero struggle. Zero struggle whatsoever for the Mini to get these pixels on the screen and to get them on the screen quickly and to move your windows around everywhere. Then sometimes on the M1 Mini, and I highlighted this in the unboxing video again, and it was never something that improved. There was sometimes a difference, not all the time, but depending on what the system was doing, again, when running dual displays, if you were to move a window between one or the other, you'd get like a hiccup of that window. Nothing major, just a tiny little drop of 2 or 3 frames, and you'd feel it. When you move the mouse, you'd kind of feel it. Okay, my window it's kind of nudged over there. You don't get any of that with this. It's seamless between all the displays. So the only way I can describe it is, even though I wasn't using the full potential of the display output on the Mini, I wasn't running 2 4K monitors or anything like that, so there was more headroom, if you like, it still felt like the overall capability, the bandwidth available was kind of narrow, and it was always a squeeze for the display to get through those pipelines and, you know, onto the screen. Now, this is definitely not a deal breaker. It was still 100% usable, and I love the M1 machines. Don't get me wrong. This is me looking for pretty much the only problem, or one of the only very minor problems with the machine. But I'm pleased to report that does not happen with the M4 Mac Mini, which is definitely a breath of fresh air. Second thing is overall system stability. I've never really had a noticeable issue with stability on the M1 machines. I would say that it was about equal to the Intel machines if I kind of had to try and measure it really loosely here. We're talking about things where the OS just kind of might lock up every now and again, opening the Force Quit menu, you know, relaunching Finder. I found on the M1, quite often it would be something like emptying the trash. You know how macOS isn't amazing with the trash management, and it would just kind of hang on the trash. And you just kind of be waiting there. Okay, yeah, now we need to relaunch Finder. If that's not quite responding, maybe we'll go for our first restart in 2 weeks or something like that on the M1 Mini. Those sorts of scenarios happened, and they continue to happen in work because I'm running a Mini there. And that one is particularly pushed because we do so much with it and it's only an 8 gig. That one really is slammed out. Still smooth as butter, but you know, it's being pushed. I would never ever consider the M1 Mini unstable, ever, but the M4 is more stable. And that is purely based on the fact that I've not really opened that Force Quit menu to either force quit an application or relaunch the Finder. I have not, in the space of a month, I've not needed to restart the OS due to an issue. Yeah, no, I have not needed to restart the Mac at all due to any kind of issue. Nothing has gone wrong. I also used to have this thing on the M1 Mini, because I've got a lot of network shares. I always just presumed it was something with my Thunderbolt 10 gig Ethernet adapter or the switching or something like that. I'd get this issue with the M1 where sometimes it just wouldn't want to talk to the shares after waking from sleep. So it'd wake from sleep and maybe 2 or 3 of the network shares would come back, some of them wouldn't. Finder would just be really unresponsive. I'd have to force quit relaunch Finder. That does not seem to be happening on the M4. So I don't know why that is. That could be something with my install. Maybe a fresh install on the M1 would have sorted that out. Who knows? I'm not saying categorically that the M4 is a more stable machine, but these are just things that I've noticed. So they are the only really kind of hiccups that I'd ever have with the M1 that I've noticed I don't have with the M4. And that kind of brings us down to now 0 hiccups, because they're the only hiccups I had before. And as I said already, I've had zero hiccups with the M4. So moving on to speed then, the actual feeling of usage of the machine, and I can say that they are pretty much identical, because I would consider the M1 16 gig as smooth as butter, and clicking around the OS, opening and closing applications, web browsing, moving files around, doing basic tasks in basic apps, all feel identical. There is zero difference. If you want to upgrade from an M1 to an M4 to have a quicker feeling system, it's not gonna happen, because it's impossible. It wasn't really possible for the M1 to feel any quicker, and they feel exactly the same. Now it's worth noting that I've got the 256 gig M4, which is not the fastest in terms of storage. The read-write speeds on the SSD are a fair bit different on the higher storage tier models, in some cases almost double. But the SSDs are so quick anyway that that also isn't really a noticeable thing. There was a time where upgrading to faster SSDs made a noticeable improvement in the actual clicking around of the OS. Those days are long gone, because even the kind of lowest end of drives are now so quick that they deliver a smooth experience around the OS. It's only if you're to measure a file transfer, a large file transfer, a long one that's taking time, it is only then that you will notice the difference between those two speeds of SSDs. But if you do want the absolute quickest in internal storage, you have no choice but to upgrade it. So that's worth noting, because that's not really something that's advertised broadly by Apple. So how about stuff that actually pushes the machine? Is it quicker? Yeah, it's quicker. It's not really noticeably quicker for me. One of the reasons is because, surprisingly, as much as I'd love to be a power user, I'm just really not. These systems are capable of so much more than I can throw at them. I mean, take these videos for instance. You know, you've clicked that little settings button down there, looked for the 4K option probably. You see that I don't upload in 4K. I just haven't felt the need to yet. Maybe I will do one day, who knows, but I just don't for the moment for whatever reason. And I'm never in a million years gonna push this M4, never in a million years gonna push the M1 by editing in 1080p. It's just chilling, doing absolutely nothing, not using any CPU or anything to edit my videos, which is lovely. I don't push this thing with my own video content, but I've been able to do a few things. So firstly, I use an app for work, and I try not to do any work on this machine, but sometimes it's necessary. Any of my real job work, you know, I try and keep that separate. This is my lovely IMNC HQ machine that I try and keep all mine. But sometimes when I'm pushed, I need to use this system, and I use an app called DCP-O-Matic. Now this is basically a program that takes any video file and it creates a digital cinema package, which is a package of files that a digital cinema server can recognize and then play back on a DCI compliant projector that you would have in any cinema. Now, I work in a cinema, and from time to time I need to create these DCP files. We had an event a couple of weeks ago where I needed to create several, and they were quite long, and it's a process that is excruciating in terms of conversion. On the M1, my average is about 6 FPS. So if you're doing a long 2-hour video, that takes a flipping long time, and your machine is slammed through that whole time. I couldn't believe the leap in that particular little app. 6 FPS on average for an M1. I was getting average 19 FPS on the M4. 19. That's over 3 times quicker. So there's got to be some acceleration there somewhere that has made that happen. But DCP-O-Matic, it's a very niche app, but it plays ball a lot better with the M4, which is awesome. So it's got something to do with some form of the hardware acceleration that was added in either M2, M3, or M4 along the way. Don't know what it is, but I'm grateful for the faster transfers, even though I don't really want to be converting on this machine all the time, when I've got a lot to do and a deadline is approaching, that extra speed is handy. Other than that, I've been doing quite a few handbrake conversions lately because I'm ripping some DVDs and I'm making some MKVs and converting files here, there and everywhere. I can say that handbrake feels probably 30% quicker, something like that. Maybe one day, on a rainy day, I'll measure it because I've still got the M1 Air, of course, so I can kind of do a side-by-side on the same file. It may be interesting. If anybody does want to see any more nitty-gritty results, just post down in the comments, let me know, because I don't want to make a video where I'm battling these machines really if that's what everybody else is doing. That's why I'm trying to give you my more personal opinion about the Mac instead of just the performance numbers. But if you do want to see them in a future video, give me that feedback. I'm not saying that I'm definitely going to do it, but it's useful to know if I was able to kind of integrate it with a little bit of something else in the video. So handbrake, yeah, 30-ish% quicker, I would say, at a guess. Final Cut, no noticeable speed increase. It was already blazing fast at 1080p on the M1 Mac Mini, and it's blazing fast on the M4. It was blazing fast on the MacBook Air. I just don't have a very strenuous editing workflow. Even with additional complications in the mix in terms of the network shares for my scratch disk and things like that, the 10 gig Ethernet network, none of that has been an issue. And in fact, the extra stability that I seem to get from the Finder and the OS overall when it comes to talking to the network, that is a huge improvement actually on the M4 Mini. But as for the responsiveness and speed of Final Cut, it feels exactly the same. The last thing I want to touch on is I/O. And it is lovely knowing that there is more I/O potential with this guy. I feel like I've got unlimited headroom. It does truly feel like that. It feels like, even though this is the base model Mac Mini, not only have I got unlimited potential with I/O, I just seem to have unlimited power, which is amazing. At what point in history, and I know I sound like a broken record, but at what point in history can you say that the lowest end machine leaves you feeling that you have unlimited power to play with? It's just unheard of, and I think it's magnificent. So I/O, of course, we've got crazy amounts. We can now run the 3 displays, which is lovely. And even though there's not tons of physical connectors on the machine, so we lose the USB-A and things like that, that's not a big deal with hubs. And what we're talking about here is the overall trunk, the width of the highways in and out. They are just massive, and knowing that I can connect anything I want to this machine in the future is very, very comforting. Whilst still retaining 10 gig Ethernet, whilst still retaining the 3 displays, there is no sacrifice to be made here. That little dock is definitely worth picking up if you plug stuff into your Mac Mini. If you don't, then obviously it's not. But if you use SD cards, if you use normal kind of USB-A flash drives and stuff, it's lovely just having it there on the front. They're not overly cheap, 80-90 quid, but it seems to be worth it. And even though those USB-C ports are welcome on the front of the Mac Mini, I've definitely been using just the A's on the dock at the moment. In years to come, when I've got more USB-C stuff, then that might change. But at the moment, it's just easier to use the dock straight up than it is to get an adapter and use the USB-Cs that are on board. So I think I'm gonna leave it there. This has been one of those rare times that I can honestly say this entire process, although I thought that we were off to a bad start with the rejection in finance, this entire process has been 100% successful. And that even extends to the fact that I didn't get those BTO options. I don't feel like I need the extra RAM. I don't feel like I need the onboard 10 gig. Everything is tremendous. I've saved a lot of money. So I'd like to say a massive thank you again to Alex, Mr. Bushuman. Lovely deal, and thank you for being so accommodating. Quick shout out to Jack as well. MacBook Air, still rocking, still absolutely lovely. And last but not least, a huge thank you to all of you guys for the support. I've got some lovely things lined up. Now that we've got all of this system moving around out of the way and I've documented all of these changes, I feel good and prepared, ready. So I think sometime in the next couple of episodes, we're going to be starting our next big fun project, which will be lovely. So stick around for that. I'm very much looking forward to it, and I'll see you all in the next video.